Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Thursday. It's January 11th. It is 2024. Thursday for at least one more week. We're going to talk some football. We have the NFL wildcard weekend. 6 NFL games, joined as always by my buddy Keith Eys819. Keith, what's happening, my friend?
Not too much. Time for some playoff football. We don't have to try to figure out which third-string running back is going to get the carries. Pretty much know where the volume is going with these playoff teams, so makes it a little bit easier to break down. We do have some weather that we'll obviously talk about. A couple of these games look pretty dicey, which is unfortunate because high-flying offenses in weather can really hold them down. But still plenty of indoor games to talk about as well, and that's where the juicy stuff is, I think, this week.
So, yeah, weather's going to play a huge role. I will mention like there are a ton of different slates on both sites for Saturday, Sunday, Monday showdown. Lot of different slates. We are going to talk about all 6 games and just break them down overall. Break down these Saturday to Monday slates. Those are going to be the slates that I mostly play. I want more games to let people overthink things. Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest. So that's what I'm going to play the most of. I'll play some Saturday only, some Sunday only, and probably some Monday night only as well, because why not? It's playoff football, and I've done some best ball drafts already. I love the playoff best ball drafts, and anything you can get your fingers on, because this and next week are like the last 2 like full weeks of NFL. So we gotta take advantage of it while we can. But yeah, let's get started. We're gonna break them all down, all 6 games. So if we talk about pricing, it's going to be the Saturday to Monday slate. And I don't know if pricing changes a lot. I haven't honestly looked too much into the other slates, so I'm sure they change a little bit, but I haven't looked too much into it. So we get started with Cleveland at Houston, 44.5 total here. Cleveland, a 2.5-point favorite on the road in Houston. We'll start with the Cleveland side of this game. Mr. Joe Flacco has done his thing. He has thrown for over 300 yards in 4 straight games. He has at least 2 passing touchdowns in each of the 5 games he's started. He's done it against the Rams, the Jags, the Bears. This Houston team, they beat them 36-22 in Week 16. Granted, no CJ Stroud in that game. Much different game. That was the game that he got the concussion, right? So he played a little bit in that game. I think he was knocked out. Or what? No, he missed that game, right?
He missed that game entirely. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So let's go Cleveland side here first. Joe Flacco, 6,100. He's kind of in the price range of like Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Jordan Love type of like Baker Mayfield, Mason Rudolph type guys. He's right below like that tier of like Tua, Mahomes, Dak, Hurts, Allen. What are your thoughts here on Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, I love Flacco. You talked about 300 yards in 4 straight. They're just letting him air it out. He has over 40 pass attempts in 4 of the 5 games that he has played. Indoor games, so don't have to worry about any weather in this one. And it's a super condensed target tree. Like, we know the ball's going to Amari Cooper. We know the ball's going to David Njoku. So that's going to be one of my higher owned stacks. I think it'll get a little bit popular, but the upside is tremendous in this spot. The indoor game and a team that is not afraid to throw the ball. I think it's game script proof as well. Like, even if they're up, I think they're going to let Flacco throw it. It's just what they've been doing. The price on Amari Cooper looks pretty good at 6,800. He's shown tremendous upside with Joe Flacco under center. Over 250 yards in his last game, scored twice as well. And Njoku's role has been absolutely incredible. Saving a little bit of money helps you pay up for Cooper and Njoku. So I think it's an affordable stack. It's a good spot. Jerome Ford is fine. I don't mind that as well, but like the volume just hasn't been there. They're letting Flacco throw a ton. So I'll sprinkle in Jerome Ford a little bit, but really it's Cooper and it's Njoku paired with Flacco for me.
I'm much more interested in Jerome Ford on FanDuel because I think like he has some touchdown equity in this spot. but I don't think he's going to get 20 carries. Like maybe if Houston gets up, they pound the rock here, but they still have like Kareem Hunt that they'll use in that type of role as well. I think this is let's play of all people, some Joe Flacco. And like Joe Flacco has so much playoff experience. He's not going to be, nervous at all. He has a fantastic defense. He's facing a rookie. I mean, he's facing a young team just in general in Houston. So I think we want to play some Joe Flacco. I think we want to play Amari Cooper. His role down the stretch with Joe Flacco at quarterback was just phenomenal. And Njoku is an interesting conversation because the sites have kind of priced this slate down a little bit. Like Travis Kelce is almost the same price as David Njoku. And I think like on both the Saturday and the whole weekend slate, those are like your top two tight ends if Laporta ends up missing the game. And it does not sound like Laporta is going to play. So, I mean, I think that Njoku has some upside, especially with the weather that we're going to be dealing with in Kansas City. But can he outscore Travis Kelce? I mean, that's your question you're asking yourself, which is crazy when you're thinking about like, hey, can David Njoku outscore Travis Kelce? And you really have to think about it. That's just kind of the Joe Flacco effect. And Joe Flacco's all in, man. I think Flacco's very much in play. He's someone that I think you should be looking at as props because they're going to chuck. And Houston down the stretch was actually struggling a lot more against the pass. So like this spot for Flacco and these pass catchers. And like you said, it's very condensed. I know I want to play Cooper. I want to play Njoku. I want to play Flacco. I think I could double stack them. And I don't think I have to take anybody else. If anybody, it would be Elijah Moore. And just because he's 4K, we might need a value player too on the slate. On the Houston side of things, how do you not like Nico Collins? I mean, 195 yards and a touchdown in a must-win game against the Colts last week. And I mean, caught all 9 of his targets. Noah Brown's banged up. Robert Woods is banged up. I think it's Nico Collins. It's Dalton Schultz. I think you could take some shots on Singletary on this slate just because running back overall is not going to be my priority. I think all the upside and ceiling is mostly at wide receiver on this slate. And, I mean, it's hard not to say let's take some shots on Stroud, but we got to remember the Cleveland defense is good.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said there. Nico Collins is the priority here. And as far as pairing him with Stroud, like I can save money by going to Flacco on the other side of this game. And it's a much better matchup for Flacco than it is for Stroud. That's not to say that Stroud can't get there and maybe he's the highest scoring quarterback on the slate, but it is a tough matchup. I probably still end up with a little bit just because of the indoor environment. And again, this is a tight target tree as well, especially if Noah Brown and Robert Woods miss. It's Nico Collins and it's Dalton Schultz. Don't even hate including Singletary in those. He's cheap, a good way to save some money. He has a small role in the passing game. It's not a huge role or anything, but the volume on the ground is really what we're targeting here. As far as workload goes among like cheap running backs, he's up there among the top options. So Nico Collins, very much the priority. Sprinkle in Singletary and Dalton Schultz as well, and probably end up with a Stroud stack or two.
Yeah, Singletary is one of those guys that can go out, rush for 40 to 60 yards and score 2 touchdowns. That's kind of the role that you're playing for Singletary. He'll get a few targets out of the backfield. But I mean, the passing share is going to be those guys here. Kind of thought like Mechie last week would get more involved with Brown and Robert Woods out. He had 2 targets. Didn't really do anything. Johnson didn't really do anything. It was Hutchinson, but I mean, he still only had 4 targets. Not enough volume, I think, just in general here. But I do think like Houston's going to be trailing in this game. I like the Cleveland side of this game, so I think Houston's going to be trailing. Let's talk Noah Brown and Robert Woods. If either one of these guys play, would you target, either one of them here at these prices?
I mean, Robert Woods is really cheap, but I would prefer Noah Brown. If all 3 of them are in, I still would play some Nico Collins in that situation. But Noah Brown has shown spike target weeks as well. So 5,100 for a guy who's live for double-digit targets, I can definitely get on board with that. Especially if the Cleveland defense is focused on Nico. Maybe Brown gets loose down the field a little bit. So I don't hate Brown. Woods, I struggle with the upside. He is only 3,600 though, so I think he's in play if he sees the field. If both of them are out, I would like the cheap Houston wide receivers are in play. I think it's Hutchinson over Mechie for me as well. He just ran more routes and saw more targets. But again, it's Collins and Schultz got so much of the volume that those guys didn't really factor in. I'm kind of with you that I think Houston is playing from behind here, and they have to throw the ball a little bit more. So I do think those punt type wide receivers could be in play, whether it's Woods in and you play him, or you go down to a guy like Xavier Hutchinson.
It's not week 13 anymore, right? Like it's not let off the gas when you're up by 21 points. It's I want to be beating a team by 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So I don't think Cleveland's going to change their game plan of like airing the ball out here. So I think it's a tough spot. Like we talked about, Cleveland's defense is really good. I mean, they finished the season as the number 2 DVOA defense. They're a really good defense. Tough spot for Stroud, but it's a 6-game slate and it's playoff football. I mean, Nico Collins and Schultz are going to get targets in this game. All right, let's talk my Miami Dolphins heading to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs here. 44.5 total in this game. Kansas City is a 4-point favorite. We'll start here with the Miami side. A lot of question marks. Tyreek plays, in my opinion. I think the question marks here are going to be Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert. I think both of these guys end up suiting up. We'll see. But I think the Dolphins are going to be offensively full strength. I know defense, they're dealing with some injuries, but let's start with the Miami Dolphins. I'll let you go first, and I'll be the biased fan after you break down the Dolphins here.
This game's going to be freezing cold. I think around 10 degrees Fahrenheit at kickoff and potentially down to 0 throughout the game. So it is definitely one of the weather spots that we're watching. Winds don't look as bad as they do in Buffalo, but still like 15 mile an hour. I think there's enough weather here to impact the game. The Kansas City defense has been really good this season as well. So if Tyreek were 100% healthy, I would say matchup doesn't matter. Who cares? Jam him in there, play him. And I still feel that way to some extent. I mean, he's seen double-digit targets each of the last 3 weeks, and he's been hobbled with this ankle in each of those games as well. So the volume should be there. It's just that explosiveness that he lives by, that the big play has not come here recently since he's been banged up. So like, it's not an exorbitant price. It's only 8,700. If I knew he was 100% healthy, I'd be very interested at that price. The running back situation, and that, I mean, even if Waddle misses, I kind of have the same feelings on Hill. I think his ceiling is just a little bit limited with these injuries that he's dealing with. The running back situation, if they're both in there, it gets tough as well. Like I'm a little bit scared of this Kansas City defense. All the injuries on Miami, it has me a little bit scared for what's been an offense that we've targeted all season long. But cold weather, a warm weather team going into cold weather and then dealing with a bunch of injuries, I'm struggling to get to the Miami side. Maybe you can talk me into something.
Yeah, I mean, I think you take shots on Tyreek just because of his ceiling overall. 10-degree weather. Don't get me wrong. I agree with you, especially from a quarterback that, I mean, like he played in Alabama in college. He played in some cold games. Like, listen, overall, I agree with you on everything that you said. The weather concerns me. If this game was being played in Miami, the total would be 55. No doubt in my mind. So the weather is definitely playing a huge factor in this game, just in general. But I think we gotta look at like Tyreek's speed and know that like he's gonna get 10 plus targets in this game. He has 20. I mean, he has 25 plus point upside, and you know you have to take shots on him because of that. I actually have a ton of interest in Achane, whether Mostert plays or not. I think that Achane has upside in this spot. I think that Kansas City's weak spot is their run defense. We've talked about it all season. You have to beat Kansas City on the run. They allow a lot of big plays to running backs this season, just in general. I think Achane is probably my favorite target from the Dolphins, not named Tyreek. And I don't think you need to get into playing everybody else. I mean, if Jalen Waddle plays, the price is okay. If Jalen Waddle sits, they're going to spread out the targets. I mean, Berrios was playing, Wilson was playing. We saw some Claypool play last week against Buffalo. Tyreek's going to be the guy. So I think I'm out on Tua at 7K, but I want some exposure to Achane and I want some exposure to Tyreek. If Mozart plays, I would target him more on FanDuel, where it's very touchdown dependent. I think that's where Mozart would be in play. But I think they're going to use, if I had to guess, it's at least 60-40 Achane in this game because they need his explosiveness in a cold game against a good defense. Kansas City's been a mess this season, just in general. Miami's defense is dealing with some injuries, and they're going to be down some really key pieces here. Miami, over the last 5 games to finish the season, allowed 283 passing yards per game. Fifth most or second most in the NFL over the last 5 games. Was a very interesting number when I was digging into it. Do we trust Patrick Mahomes to... it's such a weird thing, but I mean, he hasn't thrown for over 350 plus yards since week 7. And it's just so interesting.
Sorry, Derek has me cracking up in the chat here. He says, for anybody just listening and not watching on YouTube, he says, cheetahs don't run well in the cold. Penguins like the cold. Waddle, waddle, waddle. I'm cracking up here. But yeah, great stuff. The Kansas City side is tough. They have not looked good all season long. Like Kelsey had his worst season in a very long time. DraftKings is really tempting us with the price here at 6,100. My first instinct says I want Isaiah Pacheco here more than I want the passing game, just because we have not seen that like elite ceiling from this Kansas City offense. The targets, I think they're going to Rashee Rice still, unless they just make a like super concentrated effort to get Kelsey involved in this spot. We talked last time the Chiefs were in play that it was Rashee Rice over Kelsey for us, and it's kind of been that way for several games ever since Rashee Rice has kind of broken out. He has been the target leader in this offense. I still lean that way. It wouldn't surprise me to see Kelsey come out here and get 15 targets, which obviously would be a smash at 6,100. I prefer, I think that Njoku is the better play straight up, just from what we've seen from Kelsey recently. That could obviously come back to bite me on this slate. But the Chiefs passing attack has not been the Chiefs that we've known the last couple of years. So it's Isaiah Pacheco is really my first target here on Kansas City. I certainly will have a couple of Mahomes stacks just because we know that elite upside is in there somewhere. We just haven't seen it in a while. Rashee Rice is going to be an important part here. I'll play some Rashee Rice on his own in lineups that I don't have Pacheco as well. But again, cold weather game. I'm leaning to the ground game here. It's Pacheco first for me.
So these two teams played in week 9. And as a Dolphins fan, I try to watch as many Dolphins games as possible. And they doubled Kelsey as much as they possibly could. I mean, it was any time that Kelsey was on the field and trying to run a route, I mean, there was 2 guys in his vicinity. So he honestly just didn't play a lot in that game. So, I mean, he played a lot, but he wasn't efficient. And it was like the start of him not being super efficient down the stretch. And Travis Kelce in the playoffs is a whole different animal. I think we have to respect that and respect when Patrick Mahomes is on the move and he's going to be looking for Travis Kelce as much as possible. But we saw Rashee Rice get a huge roll down the stretch. These 2 guys are the 2 guys I want to target in the passing game. I'm with you. I probably have more interest in Pacheco. Miami's run defense was really strong down the stretch. So I think overall it's taking shots on Rice, Kelce, Pacheco. And I think if you're playing anything more than 5 teams, I think it's silly not to have at least one Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce stack, just because it's playoff football. I mean, who is Patrick Mahomes going to target 15 times in the game in the playoffs? Well, he's going to target Travis Kelce. So I think that if you're building a lot of teams, you have to consider building a Mahomes Kelce build. All right, Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Let me do a quick refresh here. This total has just been dropping. 30, 36 and a half is the current total. Buffalo is a 10-point favorite, and the reason that this game is dropping: cold, windy, potentially snow, temps in the 20s, winds around 15 to 30 mile an hour winds. It's an awful, awful football weather, and I'm sure the Buffalo Bills Mafia will be rowdy and ready to go here. I'll sit on my couch in the warm Florida weather and watch this one. Let's go Pittsburgh first. I think they have one of the toughest matchups and toughest thing to overcome this week. But I also think that they're going to have some of the lowest ownership this week as well. What do you like here, if anything, for the Steelers?
Yeah, definitely keeping an eye on the weather report. It looks like potentially the worst weather game of the entire season. So that's very important. Have to tip my cap to Mason Rudolph. He's played way better than I thought he ever could. Little bit of a step back last week, but really tough matchup against Baltimore. I can't see myself targeting the passing game here. I know Pickens had a couple of huge games in a row there. 0 targets for him last week, unfortunately. But Deontay Johnson caught a long touchdown pass. So the passing game has shown upside. I don't think with the weather, I still don't believe or trust in Mason Rudolph. I probably just leave the pass catchers on the shelf here, and we target this running back situation. Pittsburgh is a team that is not afraid to just pound the rock and pound the rock and pound the rock. Najee Harris has had a massive role over the last couple of weeks, 25 plus carries in each of those 2 games. Jaylen Warren's still very much involved, but I think with the weather here, this could be a massive volume spot for these 2 guys. If they are throwing, Jaylen Warren's very involved in the short passing game as well. So it's running backs for me here. It's both of them. If I had to choose one, I think it's Najee Harris, just because I feel good about that volume. Explosive plays are really tough, especially if we get some precipitation here. That would generally be why I'm playing Jaylen Warren. I think Najee Harris is getting 20 opportunities here on the ground. It might end poorly. He might have like a 20 carries for 40 yards type of game. He also might have 20 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think the upside is there for Najee Harris just based on volume. I don't mind Jaylen Warren as well, but it's Najee for me slightly.
Yeah, DeJounte scored like 14 points in one play last week. So It's really hard to trust that at all. I mean, I think if I was going to play DeJounte or Pickens, I think I'd go back to Pickens. I think Pickens has a much better role than DeJounte, and we saw Buffalo just kind of shut down Pickens and Rudolph look elsewhere. But I mean, I'm with you. I think the running game is what we want to look at here for Pittsburgh, just overall. And I think we should at least mention like the Steelers defense here. You know, obviously they're going to be without, it sounds like they'll be without Watt, and that's one of their big pieces, but they're 2,600. I'm not playing the Packers defense against Dallas. I get why people would take that shot. I think Dallas at home, I would much rather play like a snowy, more chances to fumble, more chances for weird stuff to happen type of spot here with like Pittsburgh's defense. I think Buffalo is one of the top defenses on the slate, but I think Pittsburgh's defense is one of those cheap defenses that you could take some shots on. As far as the running back situation, if you're playing like a 20 entry max, I 0-1 them and put them both in a group and get probably like 20 to 25% exposure to Harris and probably like the 15% range on Warren. And I think Warren's biggest role and his biggest upside comes Pittsburgh gets down in this game and he gets 5 to 8 catches out of the backfield and doesn't fumble twice. That was his biggest thing against Baltimore last week. He fumbled that second time, and I don't know if he saw the field after that. They strictly let Najee do his thing, and Najee showed his upside last week, you know. So I'm with you. I like Najee more, but I think he's going to have more ownership too. We don't have ownership up yet, so that'll be up probably tomorrow. Let's go to the Buffalo side. Josh Allen's 8K. Josh Allen, in any type of game that's going to be competitive, can run for 50-plus yards and a touchdown or two. His upside is in that. We saw last week against Miami and, like, against New England the week before, like, James Cook's role is kind of getting eaten into a little bit by Leonard Fournette, and they brought in Leonard Fournette to kind of like be that like tough runner up the field type of runner. And then they have Murray sitting there too, who can rush it in with Josh Allen. So tough matchup. Pittsburgh's defense is going to be missing a piece here that's obviously huge, but what do we like here for Buffalo?
Yeah, the running back situation is tough. Like right when James Cook is starting to break out a little bit, it seemed like, then they started mixing in Fournette, and then Cook hasn't been efficient in the last couple of games. I don't trust Buffalo to run the ball enough, even in weather. Like, and if they do, like Josh Allen is involved as well. So really struggling with the running backs here. The weather has me hesitant on the passing game. I like the Gabe Davis price if the weather was better, but it's going to be really tough for him to get down the field in 30-degree winds. Shakir's had a pretty decent role here, 6 targets last week. So I think punting with Shakir. The reason I'm even like considering this, I want to play some Josh Allen. Like he has the highest upside on the slate, even in the weather, just because of he can run. Like if he ran for 2 touchdowns, it wouldn't surprise anybody. He actually did that against New England and against the Chargers the week before that. So like, I think I would bet Josh Allen anytime touchdown. I don't know what the odds are, but I think it's a good bet that he finds the end zone on the ground in this game. I think he has more rushing upside than usual. Obviously, in the regular season, pretty confident they were going to make the playoffs. I know it got a little dicey there towards the end of the season, but like they protect him during the regular season. Different story in the playoffs. The gloves are off, no training wheels whatsoever. Allen should be running at least 10 times in this spot. So love the rushing upside here. A little scared of the passing upside because of the weather, but I still want some Josh Allen. I don't know that I'm paying for Diggs. I don't trust Gabe Davis because he gets his targets down the field. I think Shakir's my favorite wide receiver. And then the tight ends are tough with Knox back. Kincaid has seen the role grow again here recently, but I think his touchdown upside is limited with Dawson Knox in there. Maybe just going up to Allen and then cheap with like a Shakir Dawson Knox type of thing is how I'm playing this. But I definitely want exposure to Josh Allen. I'm struggling with which pass catchers I trust at this point. So I might just go cheap with them.
I think we have to look at like how much Kincaid was on the field and targeted last week. Josh Allen has found trust in this young tight end. And I mean, Dawson Knox still can steal a touchdown away because they love him in the red zone. But I think like Kincaid, easy, quick throws, I love the Shakir call because quick throws, little like wide receiver screens, like you try to get your speed guys involved. So I like the Shakir call. I'll definitely have some Diggs. I'll definitely have some Allen, but I want to see ownership, man. Is ownership going to be really low because of the weather, or are people just going to play Buffalo because it's the playoffs and it's Buffalo? So, all right, Green Bay at Dallas. 50.5 total in this game. Dallas is 7.5 point favorite. Let's start with Green Bay. We'll see what AJ Dillon's got going on, whether he'll be back or not. He's dealing with like a neck and thumb injury. From what I've read, is he has struggled to like carry the football with the thumb injury. So I think if that happens, Aaron Jones is going to get a lot of work in this game and be on the field a ton. He's a guy that can catch the ball to the backfield. But, I mean, if at this point, it's really hard not to just say, let's take some shots on Jaden Reed. If Christian Watson comes back, he might be the most underpriced player on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have interest in this Green Bay offense. Jordan Love has looked very good over the last couple of weeks. I expect Dallas to be playing from ahead, and that means a lot of Jordan Love dropbacks. If AJ Dillon is out, Aaron Jones is one of the top running back plays on the slate. The volume is locked in. You talked about the pass catching ability in a trailing game script. I think he'd be very involved in the passing game. Love the Jaden Reed call as well. Just looks like a very talented wide receiver, has had an awesome season. If Watson is in there, depending on ownership, I think Reed would be an awesome pivot if everybody wants to play Watson just because he's cheaper. I'm interested in all these wide receivers. Like Wicks has had a decent role if Christian Watson is out. Dubs was out also last week, I believe.
He got hurt during the game.
It was really early in that game. And Wicks came on strong. Even if those guys are in, though, I don't know. I think Wicks is talented also.
Yep.
Bo Melton has even looked pretty good. Like, they have a good stable of young wide receivers here. You probably need Watson and Dubs out to consider Melton, I think. But Jaden Reed's in play no matter who's on the field. I kind of want to lean Wicks in play as long as one of Dobbs or Watson misses. But I'm interested in whoever's out there on the field. I think there's a ton of upside in this Green Bay passing attack. Another indoor game here. I feel Dallas should be playing from ahead in this one, which means that Green Bay is going to be throwing it a ton. The tight end situation, we saw Musgrave come back, but he was very limited in that Week 18 game, and Tucker Kraft was still very involved. So I don't know that I'm messing with the tight ends. I think I have more interest in the wide receivers just for bigger playability.
I think it matters whether or not like Laporta plays, and like, do we get a cheap tight end that we can trust outside of like Schultz and Kincaid? So I think like overall, I don't hate taking a shot on either one of these tight ends, but I think I'd lean Kraft. I don't know. I don't know if Musgrave is like 100% yet. And like it was something with his kidney or something, right? Like, it's not.
Yeah, he took a really nasty shot. Yeah. Like, and there was some internal stuff going on. It was really bad there. So I agree. I don't think he's quite 100% yet.
But I'm with you. I have way more interest in the wide receivers than Jones in this game. My question is, like, could we take some shots here on Jordan Love in a game they should be trailing against a tough defense?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely take shots on him. I do prefer Flacco for 200 less. But if Flacco doesn't get there, this game should have some fireworks in another indoor game. So Jordan Love absolutely has 303 upside, and he'll contribute a little bit on the ground as well. So yeah, I think Jordan Love's very much in play.
All right, let's go to the Dallas side of this game. I think, like, my question is, how do you not play CeeDee Lamb on this slate?
I mean, he's been just absolutely incredible. Dallas is throwing the ball a ton, and it's all going to CeeDee Lamb. Double-digit targets.
How is he not the top player on the slate? Like, just, I think it's so hard to not have him as like the top player on the entire slate. Like, he's in that like category of like first person in, build around type of like territory. Like, his target share is insanely good, and like now he's scoring touchdowns. He had 14 touchdowns and 1,700 yards this year. Like, I know a lot of people talked about like Tyreek's yards and how good he was and stuff, but I mean, CeeDee just had a fantastic season. So didn't mean to interrupt you. I mean, the CeeDee Lamb love is very, very high on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely is. Tyreek Hill dealing with injuries and outdoors in cold weather. CeeDee Lamb is completely healthy and is indoors against a pass defense that hasn't been great this season. So totally agree with you. Jam in as much CeeDee Lamb as you can possibly fit. I have a ton of interest in the passing game overall. Like, spending up to Dak is going to be difficult because I love Joe Flacco. I just talked about Jordan Love on the other side of this game. There's a couple more quarterbacks in the next game that I definitely like. So Dak's going to be down the list for me a little bit. But I have a ton of interest in his pass catchers. CeeDee Lamb first and foremost. Jake Ferguson has had a really nice role. Been a while since he's caught a touchdown, but he might be my like favorite under 5K tight end. I mean, obviously we love Njoku. Kelsey has massive upside, but Jake Ferguson in this mid-range might get a little bit lost. I like him a good amount. And Brandon Cooks at 4,900, like, he's looked really good here recently. A touchdown in 3 straight weeks. I'm going to be all aboard the Brandon Cooks train, assuming that he's not just like mega chalk as the cheap wide receiver that's in play. But love the role that we've seen from Cooks here recently.
Yeah, I don't think you have to play Dak. I think you could just play 2 of Lamb, Cooks, and Ferguson and double stack his guys. Like, whether you want to play Jordan Love, whether you want to play, I mean, there's obviously options: Reed, Watson, Wicks, whoever plays, Aaron Jones. But it's a 6-game playoff slate. Correlation still matters, but I am okay with playing like 2 people from Dallas and not having anything from Green Bay, if that's how your build kind of shapes up. But I think I'll be off Tony Pollard. He just hasn't shown like that ceiling, so he'll probably score like 3 touchdowns in this game. Green Bay's defense has been really struggling against the run all year, but I think this is a spot I'm just going to load up on Lamb, Cooks, and Ferguson. And I agree with you on Dak. I like some of these cheaper quarterbacks more than I like Dak. And not saying that Dak can't go out there and throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns. I mean, they're not going to take him out of this game. They're going to let him go and have a field day here. So if you end up on Dak, or if you're building playoff best ball teams, Dallas stacks is like, that's like my main stack as much as I can right now, because I think that there's value in Cooks and there's value in Ferguson in those best ball drafts. And if you can get Lamb and Dak early in those drafts and get those cheap guys, you can stack Dallas and just hope they go all the way to the championship here, Super Bowl. All right, Rams, Lions, best game on the slate, hands down, not even close. Absolutely love this game. I'm sure you're with me. 51.5 total. Detroit's a 3-point favorite. We're going to start here with the Rams, and we're going to like a lot. We're going to like a lot from this game in general. Matthew Stafford going back to Detroit to make his team sad by knocking him out of the playoffs here. I mean, Stafford, Williams, Puka, Robinson, Kupp, sign me up. There is no defense being taken from me in this game. I want everything and anything in this game.
Totally with you. Completely in love. Like, one of Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua is going absolutely nuclear in this spot. I don't know that I play them together. They certainly can both get there, but it just seems like McVay schemes like whatever to whichever guy is getting wide open on the day. It just seems like that guy just has a monster day. Like, I don't know which one it's going to be. I can tell you I'm going to have one of them in nearly every lineup that I build. I think that one of these guys does something like catches 12 yards, 150 yards, and at least a touchdown. Like, one of them is going nuts. Demarcus Robinson's role cannot be ignored. I mean, what he did over the last couple of games of the season, double-digit targets a couple of times. Like, he's the very clear wide receiver 3 now, taking over for Tutu Atwell. Higbee has been banged up. I don't know if I think he's questionable still, right? Definitely on the injury report.
Higbee's questionable. He's dealing with that shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the wide receivers here. Kyron Williams' role is definitely worth mentioning, but Detroit's run defense has been really good. Their pass defense has been terrible. So it just makes a lot of sense. We're targeting Stafford and the pass catchers here. Not to say that I won't play any Kyron Williams, because he can certainly get there with touchdowns. He should receive close to his 20 carries that have been like a lock for him over the second half of the season. I think the touchdown upside is massive, but I like the wide receiver upside is what I want, and I'll place plenty of Stafford with that as well.
Robinson might end up being the highest owned player on the DraftKings slates at this price. Like, he should easily be 5K by now. He finished the season in like the mid 4s, but I mean, this is a guy that scored double digits in 5 straight before sitting out. Like, his role is so important to the Rams that they sat him last week and didn't let him play. I mean, like, that's how important Demarcus Robinson has become in this offense. So, I mean, one of Puka or Kupp, I'm with you, and then pair with Demarcus Robinson and Stafford. I mean, I'm gonna double stack a lot of Stafford. He's my favorite quarterback on the slate. Like you mentioned, Detroit, over the last 5 games, they've allowed the most passing yards at 319, and they've allowed the least amount of rushing yards at 78 rushing yards. So down the stretch, they were really good against the run, and they were really bad against the pass, and McVay will air it out. Not saying you can't play Williams, because he's uber talented in his role. He probably plays like 85+% of the snaps here. And I mean, you have maybe one of the running back on this slate that's going to do that. Aaron Jones and Pacheco, I guess 2 guys. So let's go to the Detroit side, because love Detroit just as much. Obviously, St. Brown, one of the top wide receivers on the slate. Jameson Williams, another fantastic value play in this game. His role was great. He dealt with the ankle off for that long catch in that Dallas game and then left the game. fully practiced. He had a week off. I mean, this is a hard spot to pass on him, especially with Laporta doubtful. I mean, we're going to put him as doubtful. I mean, the dude like hyper extended his knee live on TV. It would be a shock to me if Laporta plays. I think Brock Wright is going to start here at tight end, and Brock Wright's not a high volume tight end. I think it's going to be Williams. It's going to be St. Brown. And I mean, I think Gibbs out of the backfield is super interesting this week.
I completely agree with everything that you said. Amon-Ra is one of the top plays on the entire slate. Jameson Williams has tremendous upside for just 3,500. Not touching the tight end situation. I would play Josh Reynolds before I played a tight end. I think 7 targets last week. Yeah. Like we saw him get back involved here. It is worth noting that Khalif Raymond left that game early with an injury as well, so that did help Reynolds a little bit. But
Raymond's not supposed to play though either.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, then I think Josh Reynolds is an awesome play, especially if we see something like Williams with twice the ownership as him. I definitely prefer Jameson Williams. He's the way more explosive guy. But Josh Reynolds, like he sees end zone targets. He's been involved in this offense. He's been with Stafford since the Rams days. So like Josh Reynolds is a fantastic play at 3,800. And the running backs, I'm completely with you. I'm like all season long, I've been playing Montgomery at low ownership because of the touchdown equity. But we've talked about Gibbs, and if the Lions happen to get behind in this game, like Gibbs could absolutely eat with no Laporta and like a need for like short area of the field type of stuff. Like Gibbs could catch 6-7 balls in this spot, and it would not surprise me if the Lions happen to be playing from behind. So that's definitely the running back I would target. Montgomery still has the touchdown upside, but this is going to be a shootout. Like should be back and forth. I think Stafford and the Rams can keep up here. They're going to push this Detroit offense, and that's exactly what we want in this dome where we love to target games. So Lions passing game wheels up.
This whole game wheels up. I mean, This is just that game that I know I'm going to be watching. I know I'm going to bet the over, and I know I'm going to target it a ton from because, I mean, it sets up as such a fantastic game. All right, we got Philadelphia going to Tampa. This game is currently at 43.5, and Philadelphia is a 3-point favorite. I know Tampa's like at home. Philly's definitely the favorite in this game. Let's start with Philadelphia like we normally do here, going to the visiting team first. And Jalen Hurts, I mean, they say X-ray showed his finger is good to go. Swift got banged up in that game. A.J. Brown got banged up in that game. Devontae Smith has been dealing with an ankle injury. Like, Dallas Goedert might be the best tight end play on the slate because everyone for Philadelphia is banged up, and he might see like 8+ targets in this game.
Yeah, tough scenes for Philly, man. They're limping to the finish line here. They've looked really bad for several weeks in a row now. I mean, when you can't put up points on the Giants, and that's before the Hurts finger thing, like they look bad even in the beginning of that game when Hurts was fine. It's really tough here. Tampa Bay's defense played really well last week as well. I know we always want to attack Tampa Bay through the pass, and Philly theoretically has one of the most talented passing units in the league, but it has looked really, really rough for a couple of weeks here. Like, I just can't see myself paying up for a hobbled A.J. Brown over Amon-Ra St. Brown or CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill even. Like, these Philly guys are going to be way down the list. The running back situation, like, just has never taken off all year. Swift came out of the gates really hot and then kind of slowed down. It was just an illness last week, so I assume that Swift will be fine in this game, and that takes Gainwell out of play. It's Dallas Goedert is the only like real comfortable Philly click here. I probably end up pairing him with Hurts on a couple of teams just because he has that same double two touchdown rushing touchdown upside that Josh Allen does, and maybe he rushes 2 in and throws for 2 and is just the quarterback that you have to have. So I still play Hurts a little bit, but again, way down my list. Similar to Dak, like I'm not going to get to a ton of him. It's the ceiling that I'm chasing on a couple lineups out of 40 or whatever I end up making.
Derek in YouTube chat asks, Gainwell in play for a cheap running back. Swift would have to be out.
Yeah.
For me to touch. I think Swift would be the guy I would play in the backfield here. But I honestly don't want to play running back. I mean, if AJ Brown plays, he could be like sneaky good. Like Tampa's really bad against the pass. He got banged up last week. He's going to have a question mark next to his name up until Monday night, and he's expensive. So I think
like
a lot
4% owned.
Yeah, I mean, how do you click AJ Brown over St. Brown? I mean, they're the same price basically. So I mean, I think AJ is going to have a really low ownership. But I mean, it's risky. There's nothing safe here for Philadelphia, but I mean, I think Philly's going to put up a fight here against Tampa. Let's go to the Tampa side of this game. You got to attack Philadelphia through the pass. So we say. I mean, the run defense has been okay, but I mean, they've just got scorched on the ground like every game to end the season. It feels like. But, I mean, you got to attack them through the passing game. Baker Mayfield, cheap here at 5,800. What are we doing with this Tampa team? I mean, obviously, we know the role for, like, Rashard White is fantastic. We're seeing Trey Palmer get more involved in the passing game. What are your thoughts of Tampa?
Yeah, I'll start with Baker. I just don't see him having the same upside as Stafford or Goff in the last game, who are indoors, as Joe Flacco in the first game, who's indoors. Like, not that weather should be a problem in Tampa this time of year, but
hey, listen, it's like 45 right now.
Yeah, well, there you go. I didn't actually even look at the weather report. There is a chance for rain in this game, actually, on Ross report. So, would be more concerned about the wind speed than I would be about the rain. But you just can't beat the dome environment. So those are probably the quarterbacks I'm playing. The other side of that is, where the upside is in the receiver room for Tampa Bay. Just play Mike Evans. Like, if Baker's going to go off and have a huge game, it's more than likely that Mike Evans is coming with him. So I think I would rather spend up for a different quarterback with more upside, not necessarily spend up, but just go a different direction at quarterback and play Mike Evans. He's my favorite target from Tampa here. You mentioned Philly's pass defense has been really struggling this season. The run defense was outstanding for most of the year and then kind of fell off, but it's still Mike Evans is the way that I want to try to beat this team or get exposure to ceiling for Tampa. Godwin is fine, but he probably needs to catch 10 balls and find the end zone, which I think he has like 2 or 3 touchdowns all season long. It's Mike Evans is the guy that has 2 touchdown upside, could go off for 150 plus yards. So Evans is my main target. Rashad White is a tough click in this matchup. The role is phenomenal. I wouldn't try to talk anybody off of him. He could certainly get there, but I'm not in love with it. I would much rather play Pittsburgh running backs even than Rashad White. I like the Trey Palmer call, like as far as a punt wide receiver. Depending on who gains the steam, I think Demarcus Robinson is going to be more popular. I think Jameson Williams will be more popular. If you're looking for a pivot in that 3K range, I like that Palmer call quite a bit.
I think I'd still prefer like Shakir over Palmer, but
Yeah.
I mean, you got to beat Philadelphia typically through the pass. Like I said, they've really struggled down the stretch against the run. We saw Saquon just have a field day last week against Philadelphia, and they didn't really start pulling people until the third quarter of that game. So Saquon was having a field day before that happened. One more question in chat from Richie before we play the morning grind game. Who's the cheapest tight end you feel okay playing? Goddard or a flyer on right, or Mitchell if Laporta sits?
Cheapest tight end. I mean, I certainly feel fine going at Ferguson or Kincaid, who are just slightly 100 and 200 cheaper than Goddard. I feel okay playing a Green Bay tight end, and I think we both agreed that it was Kraft over Musgrave. We don't think that Musgrave is quite healthy yet. I don't know. Like Brock Wright, you're just touchdown hunting. He's not going to catch more than 4 balls. I think that would be a surprise if he caught more than 4 balls in this offense. So, like, I feel most comfortable with Schultz probably in the 4K range, like as far as the cheapest guy I would play. But if you're playing large field tournaments, I don't hate shots on Tucker Kraft or Brock Wright. I think it's okay also.
Yeah, and if Higbee sits, I think I'd take some shots on Allen before I'd play Brock Wright, Davis Allen. But I mean, that's just a game environment. I like the game environment in that game.
Like Dawson Knox I know the weather's terrible in Buffalo, but I feel like Dawson Knox has a better chance of catching a touchdown than Brock Wright.
Yeah, I mean, Knox could catch too, and it wouldn't shock anybody. So, all right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we'll get out of here. Back talking basketball tomorrow. Man, basketball not good for me on Wednesday night. It was like these blowouts are just like, gosh, they're driving me crazy in the NBA right now. All right, as always, let's play the morning grind game for NFL quarterback for 300 plus passing yards. Who do you got?
I mean, the guy's done it in 4 straight. Who else could I go to but Joe Flacco?
All right. Flacco. I'm going to go Stafford returning to Detroit. It has nothing to do with that. I think that this game's just going to be one of those very fast-paced, high-scoring games. Low-owned running back for a touchdown.
So you made a comment that kind of surprised. You said Najee Harris was going to be a little bit popular. Nobody likes clicking Najee Harris. I know.
I think he okay. I said he might be a little popular. I didn't say that I think he's going to be chalky.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I love Najee Harris in this spot. The volume's been incredible. The weather there should force Pittsburgh on the ground. I think that Pittsburgh would play it heavy through the ground anyway, just to try to keep Josh Allen off the field, even if the weather forecast clears up. So very confident in that role for Najee Harris. Yeah,
I'm gonna go James Cook. And I mean, there's so many ways that this guy can get a touchdown. So give me James Cook. Give me a quarterback, wide receiver stack for a touchdown.
Give me Jared Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown. No Matt Laporta, we're kind of assuming. They love targeting Laporta down there in the red zone. So I like St. Brown, not only to rack up a ton of catches, but also find the end zone.
I'm going to go Flacco to Amari Cooper.
Love it. That's the other one I was considering as well. Amari's role, man, has just been awesome with Flacco.
Yeah, I mean, the cheat code would be Dak to CD, but I didn't want to give the cheat code out. Give me a wide receiver with 8+ targets this week.
Went back and forth on this one. I'm going to land on Puka Nacua going into Detroit. I think the Rams are throwing a ton in this spot. I was going back and forth with Cup or Nacua. I think I'm on the Puka side this week. Going to have a ton of both of them.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta. There's no sides anymore. You just play them both. I mean, listen, St. Brown would be a cheat code. CD, Tyreek, those guys. I mean, we're not cheat coding it up here. Give me Nico Collins. Sure. He might even be a cheat code. Tight end for a touchdown. Who's scoring this week?
Give me Jake Ferguson. Cowboys are going to be throwing it a ton. Guessing CD finds the end zone at least once as well, but there's plenty of volume to go around for Jake Ferguson to find the end zone.
I like it. I'm going to go Njoku. I mean, that's who I wrote down. So give me Njoku. Does Njoku outscore Travis Kelce and Dallas Goedert? I mean, that's the question I think a lot of people are going to be asking themselves this week. Goddard's price is fantastic. You know, if we don't get news before Saturday and going into Sunday about like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, we might get really, really good ownership on Goddard going into Monday night. Defense for 10+ points.
I'm going to the game that you probably expected me to, but your Pittsburgh call, I absolutely love that. And I think they're going to give up some points against Buffalo, but Josh Allen has been very turnover prone this year. The weather is going to be a factor here if the forecast holds. So they're cheap. I'm going to have a ton of Pittsburgh defense. I think they can score a touchdown in this spot. I think they can turn Allen over multiple times.
I mean, I don't hate it at all. I hear you, and you took my pick, but it's okay. As a Dolphins fan, this pains me so much. But I'm going to take the Kansas City defense. We're getting them under 3K. We try not to go expensive defenses on this question when we do this every week, but give me Kansas City for 10+ points. They put up 14 points against 12 points and only allowed 14 points against the Dolphins earlier this year. So give me Kansas City. They're going to get after Tua in this game, and if Tyreek doesn't have a monster game, Achane doesn't break off big runs, Miami's going to be in trouble here if their playmakers don't make big plays. Shocking. Against the spread or money line, heading to the betting portion of the show. What do you got for us this week?
The Houston Texans have been an awesome story this year, but Joe Flacco has been the story of the NFL. Cleveland -2.5 going into Houston. I think Joe Flacco gets it done.
Well, guess what? I'm going to agree with you. I don't have another one. That's my pick too. I am with you. I already bet this. Love Cleveland -2.5 right there with you. Over-under bet. What do you got for us on an over-under bet this week?
That Kansas City, Miami, Kansas City total still up there at 44.5. There's some weather in that game too. And I'm with you on the Kansas City defense call. I firmly believe that's one of the top defenses in the NFL. Give me the under in Miami, Kansas City. That's a scary one, but with Miami's injuries on the offensive side, I think that Kansas City can hold them down a little bit here, under 44.5.
Well, I wrote that one down too. I did write 2 down for this one because there was 2 that I liked. I like the Rams Lions over 51.5 here. This game has so much potential to be aired out, to be a shootout. We've seen so many shootouts for the Lions this season in general. So love this game. I think we're just going to see 2 coaches that are very aggressive, and we're going to see either a dud of a game or a game that goes over like 60. So I like this Detroit Rams over 51.5 as well. Player prop. What do you got for us this week on the player prop front?
Going to Joe Flacco, 4 games in a row, over 300 yards. His prop is sitting at 271.5 on most books right now. In the Dome in Houston, no weather to worry about. Joe Flacco over 271.5 passing yards.
Does it feel dirty to say it?
It really does, but I feel good about it.
Yeah. So, okay. I bet this at like 265.5, and I still feel really good about it at the current 274.5 numbers. So I'm going to give it out, but I'm going to take Matthew Stafford over 274.5 passing yards. This dude has so many weapons just in general. He's gone over this passing total in 4 of the last 5 games. You have to beat Detroit through the air, like we've talked about so much. Detroit, 319 passing yards allowed average over the last 5 games of the season. Really like this spot for Stafford. I'm going to take his over. Let's go to the Pick'em streets. Let's finish the wild card weekend off with a strong 2-pick play here. What do you got for us in the Pick'em streets?
All right, let's do it. Talked about Josh Allen. They kind of take care of him during the regular season. Playoff time is different. We've got weather in Buffalo, might make passing the ball extremely difficult. Josh Allen, more than 37.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, I like that one. We'll pair it with my boy, Amon St. Brown. Love Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. We're going to take over or more than 7.5 receptions for him. This, like I said, if this game duds, I'm going to come on here next week and say I had a bad week because I'm going to be way overweight on this game. So give me St. Brown more than 7.5 receptions this week. Should be a fun weekend. I'm excited for wildcard weekend. My team's still in it. Your team is floating around with a number 1 pick, and we'll see what the Bears end up doing with that. Keith, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, fun slate. The 6-gamer, I think, like you talked about at the top of the show, looks really, really good, especially with the weather stuff. I think there are a lot of angles. Like we talked about AJ Brown being completely unowned more than likely. So I think the 6-gamer is a really, really fun slate. And there's some decent prize pools. The huge prize pools are going to be on the individual days, but definitely don't forget about that 6-gamer too, because it looks really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with smaller prize pools just in general, because I think that there's a little bit more edge on the 6-game slate. Like, especially when you think about like the Eagles' injuries and like how people probably aren't going to touch that situation on a 6-game slate when it's a whole different day, just sets up nice contrarian wise. So I think that I prefer the 6-game slate. I'll definitely play some of the 3-game Sunday slate. I don't love the 2-game Saturday slate. I think that the build for the 2-game Saturday slate is Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll build like a single entry team and throw it in a bunch of single entry stuff for that slate. But Hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. We're back tomorrow with more NBA. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.